We now come to the seventh of a set of 7 questions that the Rebbe has raised regarding Rashi's commentary to the double Mishkan. But in order to place question 7 into its context, we will need to look at 2 pasukim, one in Bereshit, the other in Shmot, along with Rashi's commentary to the respective pasukim. One relates to Noach's blessing to Yafet and Shem following the flood. The other relates to the Big Day Kahuna, and specifically the Urim V'Tumim. From Rashi's commentaries to these 2 pasukim, we will have a textual basis for a point that had been made with respect to question 6, which was built on the thesis that there was a difference in Kedusha levels between Bet HaMikdash number 1 and Bet HaMikdash number 2. Bereshit 9 deals with the period following the departure of Noach and his family from the Teva. There was an unfortunate incident, one in which the text refers to euphemistically, the result of which was that a blessing was given by Noach to Shem and Yafet, a curse to Cham, and specifically directed against Knaan ben Cham. The blessing component was that Yaft Elokim leyefet, v'yishkon ba'aholei Shem. The blessing in of itself is quite cryptic, and we shall be looking at 3 options that read information into this blessing. The first comes from the Targum Yonatan, in which we insert into the mouth of Noach a messianic view that Yaft Elokim leyefet, the descendants of Yafet, will eventually convert, and v'yishkon, sit, settle, shin chaf nun shchina, the shoresh, b'aholei Shem, ohel, a tent, also a term that is used to describe a bet medrash, that the descendants of Yafet will ultimately study Torah alongside the descendants of Shem. Certainly not a pshuta shel mikra option, and one that Rashi does not record in his commentary. Option 2, quoted by Rashi, does not link the Yaft and the Yishkon stanzas. The subject in both stanzas is God. In the first stanza, Yaft Elokim leyefet, God will allow the descendants of Yafet to eventually become a world power. By the same token, v'yishkon ba'olei Shem. Rashi comments, Yishre Shchinato, his Shchina, his presence, will dwell b'Yisrael. The familiar contrast between the Gashmi and the Ruchni. Yaft, excellence in Gashmi, Shem, excellence in Ruchni. And here we will link the word V'yishkon to the Shchina, the V'yishkon ba'aholei Shem, beginning with the Mishkan and continuing on into the establishment of the Bet HaMikdash in Yerushalayim. Rashi then goes on to quote a third option, midrashic in nature, that links the 2 stanzas in the words of Rashi, or Medrash Chachamim, that Afal Pi sheyaft Elokim leyefet, although God will grant beauty to Yefet, in that Shebana Koresh Shehaya Mibnei Yefet Bayit Sheni, the second Bet HaMikdash, was rebuilt by Cyrus, a descendant of Yefet. Nevertheless, Lo Sharata Bo Shchina, the Shchina did not rest in Bet HaMikdash number 2. Not a complete absence of the Shechina, as we will point out in the footnote, but a lessening of the Kedusha. V'hechan Sharata, where did the Shechina rest? B'Mikdash Rishon, Shebana Shloma, built by Shlomo HaMelech, Shehayim Ibnei Shem, who was a descendant from Shem. Our translation now reads, although Yaft Elokim leyefet, with the building of Bet HaMikdash number 2, nevertheless, V'yishkon, God will dwell, B'aholei Shem, in the Beit HaMikdash, built by a descendant of Shem, namely Shlomo HaMelech. Footnote number 8 notes, Af she'ein hakavana shebebayit sheni lo sharta shchina klal. This is not to say that there was no Kedusha, no Shechina, in the Beit HaMikdash number 2, for obvious reasons. Deharei zeho hepech kol inyona shel haBeit HaMikdash. For such an option would defeat the entire purpose of the Beit HaMikdash. In other words, it would be untenable to suggest that Bet HaMikdash number 2 was merely a temple without the Shechina. Kiyem, the Rebbe goes on to write in the footnote, what is meant is Shelo Sharata Bo Shechina Kamo B'Bayit Rishon, that the level of Kedusha, the level of Shechina revelation in the Bayit number 2 was not as intense as that of Bayit number 1. V'kama dargot b'hashrat hashchina. One needs to accept the fact that when we deal with the Shechina, there are degrees of intensity in the revelation of God's Kedusha. The footnote refers us to a commentary of Rashi, Shmot Lamed Daled, Peret Tet, dealing with Moshe's request that God once again walk amongst the people. Yelech na Adonai b'kirbeinu.